Welcome to the new season of Talking Leaders. I'm Paul Gisby. For this first episode of the season, I'm talking with John Sands of Qlik, the data analysis software company. John is a videographer and podcaster, and he has one of the coolest job titles I have heard in a long time, Qlik Spotlight Evangelist. Just before Christmas, we met to talk about podcasting for internal communications, and in particular, the podcast John produces for Qlik, which goes out to 2,500 employees spread across 100 countries. We started our conversation with a bit of background about John and how he got to be a podcaster.
It's been a funny journey. If I went back through all of my jobs, like I was in the Royal Navy, I was a fax machine engineer, I was a photocopier engineer, and I got into IT probably about now, 17 years ago. I got into IT and in education. So almost all my roles have been in education, around teaching, both classroom, blended learning, all of those things. And then I joined Qlik now nearly 13 years ago, and actually joined as a pre-sales engineer. I went from pre-sales to product marketing, and when I got into product marketing, I was working on the PR side. So I was presenting at conferences and giving the message out around our products, the way forward, and that's where the evangelism side sort of started off. So right. I've never been afraid to talk to people. That's one thing I found quite easy. And then I had one of those moments where you wake up and think, wow, that would be a great idea. Now, this was brought about by the fact that our company, for whatever reason, we used to get together, the whole of the company, when we were a bit smaller, and we'd get together somewhere, no matter what function, no matter what geography you were in, we'd all get together and do some education around products. We'd get to know what the way forward is, and that got stopped.
Right. As a lot of organisations still, because Qlik's global, isn't it? It's in lots of
territories. It's about 2,500 people in about 100 countries, I think it is. Right. I don't know exact figures, but 50 to 100,000 customers. So we'd get together, and that got stopped. And what I found was missing was that ability to be able to meet someone who may have been in a different function, a different geography, sit down, have a beer, have a conversation with them. And chat. Yes, of course, we've got a lot of the ways of conversing over Skype or something like that, but we wouldn't, in that case, get to know the person. So I thought, would it be great if we started doing interviews where I would interview the person around their role and what they do, but also around who they are. Very simple questions, just sort of, how do you relax? Well, how do you, can you cook? What kind of films do you watch? That kind of thing. So people could not only get to know the person and the role, but also who they are.
Yeah.
And this was done over WebEx. We do have a WebEx, but record everything locally. So that's my role and what's brought me to where I am now. And I've told you a little bit about what Qlik are. So large software company, globally located. And they have software that allows you to democratize data, so to give people access. As you know, with your previous role at AstraZeneca and almost every single company, we're swamped by data, but there's not a lot of information out there, and we allow you to sort of make some sense out of that data. So it's not more than that, but I'm not going to spend half an hour.
Even make sense of podcast data. You showed me that and the stats you can get, so widely applicable. Let's stay a little bit on the purpose then of what you do, the podcasting and the communications that you do, because you sort of covered it there. But if you had a senior manager come up, they want sort of punchy one-liner. So what's your punchy one-liner of what's the purpose of all this stuff that you do then, John?
It's finding the person behind the PowerPoint,
right?
Because too often when executives and anyone gets on, and when you see them behind a PowerPoint deck. You don't get to know the person.
Yeah.
You see a PowerPoint, you see a corporate presentation, and that's all you see. So it's really humanization of the people that you work with.
Yeah, I love that phrase that you talked about, people hiding behind the shield of the PowerPoint. Yeah. So how would you describe then the sort of tone, style, quality of your podcasts?
Well, I want them to be a conversation. I want them to be, I try to get people to forget. And that's one of the biggest challenges for me, because I do video interviews And a byproduct of my video interviews is actually a podcast. So when I'm sitting someone in front of a camera, if you're not used to it, it can be sort of rabbit in headlights. So my way of interviewing is to calm people down and to get them into a conversation. They all know what they're talking about. It just all flies away when they get in front of a camera. So I want it to be a conversation.
Yeah. Now, when you said that, you said something very interesting there about you calm them down. So, and that's really important. I certainly relate to that. You have to get your interviewee into the right space. And sometimes you've got people who are really, really savvy at the whole thing, possibly a bit too.
And that can be a problem as well.
A bit too slick, absolutely. But your average Joe, people like me and you who aren't used to having cameras and microphones shoved in our face, it can be a little bit daunting. So what do you do to get them into a good place?
It's eye contact.
Right.
It's affirmation. So it's not sitting there and saying, okay, Paul, what do you do for a job?
He's staring at me now and it's a bit scary.
What do you do for a job? And then sitting back and waiting for an answer and then saying, and how do you do this? And then sitting back and waiting for an answer. It's not an interrogation.
No.
It's a conversation. So in a conversation, if you're talking to me in a conversation, I won't just do that, rat-tat-tat-tat, question. No. What I'll do is I'll go, oh, yeah. And I may even, and we all had a conversation down the pub, in the cafe, I may even actually go off on a tangent and start saying, oh, that's interesting. What about this? What about that? And then people start, because they know their subject, they start saying, there's that, there's this, and this is great, and I really like that. Yeah. And by that point, you've got them. Yeah. By that point, they are not looking at the camera, they're not looking at the audio, they're looking at you, and they're having a conversation.
So do you do any prep before you even meet them?
Oh, always. Right. And the reason I'll be talking to them will be because there is something going on within the company that is highlighting it, or something that I've seen.
Right.
So there's prep as far as the location, because these are remote a lot of the time. Very rarely am I lucky to be face to face like we are now. Yeah. It can be remote. So there's location, and I'll prep them with the questions. Yeah. And what I'll do is I'll say, if you're not happy or you're not comfortable with any of these, let me know. They very rarely come back and say, well, I'd like to get rid of this and that. They very rarely do that. But you're making them comfortable because you're saying, look, you're in control. Yeah. You actually can tell me if you're not happy with any of this.
Right.
So that's the prep beforehand. I'll always ring them up, have a chat with them, let them know the format, let them know what we're doing. Also, what is also very important, especially in a corporate environment, is to say, if you're not happy with the results of this, we won't put it out there.
Yeah.
If you're not happy with this and you want to redo it, you want to do that, that's your call.
So you always let them look at and listen to what you've done before.
I'd say 90% of the time, yes. Right. Sometimes time restrictions don't allow me to do that, but majority of the time I'll say, here's your interview. Let's tell me what you think, and if you want to redo, we'll redo.
Right. Okay. So you talked about you do the video and then you do the podcast. So do you regard them then as chiefly a videographer and a video interviewer who just then chops out the audio, or do you regard yourself as a podcaster? Where do you...
I would say I'm a videographer, primarily. And the podcast came about because of trying to find another way for people to communicate. And I think we were speaking about a podcast about someone who was putting out just podcasts. And no alternative to that. And people learn, like this comes from my education background. Some people learn visually. Some people would prefer a podcast and do in the car. But if you give them the option of both, and when you go onto my conference site where I put all of my internal stuff, they have the option there to either download the video or download the audio. So they've got both options in there. I do have some that are just podcasts. Yeah, but I would say mostly it's video content, the interview content that was then turned into a podcast. Yeah.
The thing is, though, when I looked at and listened to yours, particularly when I listened to the podcast, there was one that actually, when I first started looking at your stuff, and just by fluke, I ended up listening to a podcast. It was the Lebanese lady, I can't remember.
Oh, yes, that's the Mid-Air one. Yeah, one of my favourite ones.
Right. Actually, yeah. Well, so I listened to that and I thought, that's a really, really good podcast, the audio one. And then I thought, okay, well, I'll have a look at the video stuff as well. And as it happened, I landed on that one, and it was the same person and it was the same interview.
Yeah.
And what struck me was, it was nice to see her and see she was moving around in the video and so forth. But it worked completely as a podcast. Yeah. And the audio worked. And I don't think that's an obvious skill. I don't think that will always work. If you, it's interesting. A lot of the TV people now are starting to repurpose a lot of their input. So you will hear an interview with somebody and then you'll see it later on the news, and they've obviously, rather than sending 2 reporters out, they've lifted the audio. But quite often, the audio on its own doesn't work.
No. And that really, I suppose, it depends on the environment that it's done. Because mine is always, well, I say always, most of the time, it's a conversation over a WebEx. And being that way, there isn't much in the way of... It's not like 70% visual, 25% audio. It's a very good mix of it. So it comes across as a podcast as well as it does, I think, as the visual as well. Because we're not sitting outside somewhere where the majority of it is seeing the environment and seeing what's going on and pointing out, visual stuff. It's really still that conversation. And I think that's why, I wouldn't say it always works, that's not the case, but there will always be something someone can get from it. So,
even so, I still think, this is one of the things I think you do well, is you've got to have an ear for what it is sounding like. Because in a conversation, people communicate in lots of different ways, particularly when they're face-to-face, body language and so forth. And a lot of people, some more than others, will communicate via facial expressions. So I might say, what did you think of the meal last night? And you might just wrinkle your nose.
Yes.
Well, funnily enough, nose wrinkling doesn't come across very well on audio only. So you must be listening then as they're talking with your audio ear as well as your video eye.
Absolutely. It's the listening and the feedback. And I will also, if I think that someone's nodding their head or doing something I think won't come across, I will then provoke them into giving the audio. It's like on the police tapes, isn't it? The prisoner is now nodding their head, that kind of stuff.
I never heard you say that, but yeah.
No, I've never said that, but I would prompt it in a less obvious way.
Yeah.
Because I'm aware that the audio content, needs to be there as well.
Right.
It is. It has to be there.
And what's your frequency of publication
Well, that's quite a funny one because it really depends on what's going on within the company at the moment. So if we've got a big push, like there is our sales kickoff in Las Vegas coming up, and I'll be going out there and interviewing there, and so there'll be a big push on stuff after that. As long as it goes through the legal channel, bearing in mind all the podcast stuff has to be checked by legal because my podcast channel is available to anyone.
Right. So we'll come on to that in a minute. Yeah.
But so there'll be pulses of it. What I am aware with podcasts and the stats I get from Podbean, which I use, is that you need to get out a steady stream to make people come back and to download. So I'm aware of that, and I'm looking at that and seeing how I can get that. And maybe even to the case of just holding fire on stuff and then gradually releasing it.
That's always the tyranny, isn't it? You set yourself up, you say, I'm going to do it once a week, and then it becomes a monster that's glowering at you every Monday saying, where are you?
And you do not want that because you'll then end up putting out content for the sake of putting out content. And that doesn't work.
No, that's true. I'll tell you one thing actually on that, though, that I think is quite a neat trick, is you see a lot of people do now, is to actually publish in seasons.
Oh, I've not seen that. Okay.
Yeah, so instead of just saying, okay, it's open-ended and now we're on episode 493, you say, okay, season 2 is going to be 8 or 10.
Yeah.
And then you batch them and you put them out. Because people seem to accept the gap between seasons much more than they accept the gap between individual episodes. And because you've got them all batched, you can put your season out. You can do a Netflix and dump the whole lot.
Like a box set, yes.
Yeah, or you can run them out.
That's interesting. That's something I've not thought of. So
and then the other thing you can do with that, which is quite neat. And this is what Debbie Aurelius, who we were talking about earlier, of Be a Bigger Fish, is theme your season. So Debbie's current season is themed on internal comms.
Yeah.
And that's quite neat. It's quite a neat.
I suppose she has the luxury of being able to do that. That is one thing, I suppose, with internal comms for me, it is internal comms.
Yeah.
So I'm communicating to my company about things that are happening at that time.
So you're driven by another timetable.
Absolutely. Yeah. So there may be, like at the moment, we're driven by software as a service because we're going over to cloud base and we've got that push. So I then need to focus around the people that are involved in that and the executive team getting the company message out there and so on. And I won't always have visibility of when that's going to happen until a little while before.
I have to say, though, when I hear you say that, part of me is slightly jealous because it means that you don't have to worry about well, what should we talk about? Because it's
I know what
happening.
we're going to talk about.
You've got the content. You know, when you're driving your own podcast, it is a bit more about okay, well, you know, where are we going to take it this week? It's like I'd say to people when they ask me what it's like working for yourself as opposed to working for a company, and I said this might sound a bit obvious, but actually it really strikes you. When you are employed and you go in the morning, the one thing you don't think about is there going to be work?
Yes.
Because there always is.
Yeah.
It's usually too much.
There's always something to do.
When you're on your own, there is that thing where you walk in and you think, okay, where's the work? So you have got that advantage, but then I suppose it's a double-edged sword.
Yes, it is, because there'll be times when you're sitting there thinking, well, what else is happening? Yeah. I don't very often get that, because there's always an event coming up. There's always something that I go along to, and I have the luxury of being able to go out and do that and go on site and do it. So that, I love that part of my job. And I'm meeting people. I'm meeting so many interesting people that have so much to say. It's a joy. It's a joy.
Right. Well, and that's the curiosity thing. Personally, I think that's an essential quality of any interview. You have to be curious. So just going back to the prep thing then, do you research around the people you're interviewing so you know a bit more about them?
Yes. Right. I research into their role. A lot of time they're new to the company, and a lot of time they do my research for me. So when I do a list of questions, and the questions are just bullet points, and a lot of people will spend a lot of time trying to suss out the questions. For me, that isn't the skill. The skill is what goes on after the question and how you take that question forward. Yep. So a banal question such as, tell me about your career journey at Qlik. Yeah. So simple, so nothing, but that is the lead in to them telling me all about them, all about what they do. I'll do some research. The research I will do is, for example, if I go onto LinkedIn and they worked at a particular company, if they don't mention it or they do mention it, I'll start thinking, well, okay, they were there. What else can I ask them about that? Because there may be something I would want to know about that. Yeah. And that can also come about during the interview. And that's the beauty of it, is being able to weave around the conversation and make it and act, as a conversation.
Well, it absolutely is, yeah. Have you always been able to do that right from the beginning then, you think?
I've never been taught it.
No. But do you think you got better as you went along? Or?
I suppose I have. And it's all about confidence in what you're talking about. It's all about the confidence when you're in front of people. Same as when I was doing my... I'd go along to audiences of 500, 600, 700 people and stand on a stage and talk about something. Now, I remember when I first started doing that, or it's a subject I'm not confident about, you'll be looking at the PowerPoint, you'll be doing that, and you'll just be talking. As you become more confident with yourself, and confident with your subject, that's when it flows, and that's when it's allowed to go.
I mean, I'm sort of thinking back to my own days. I mean, certainly it's one of the things I noticed was my ability to listen improved, and it became very important. And that's one of the things I actually love about doing an interview, is being in the conversation. It's getting that balance where I'm in the conversation and I'm genuinely talking in a conversational style with the person. But at the same time, my producer ear is listening in and listening for, as Ira Glass puts it, good tape.
Yes.
And the really good bit. But I didn't find that came as a natural skill straight from the beginning. And in fact, to begin with, it caught me out a couple of times because, when you're in producer mode, you're listening for the good tape, but you're also looking at the machine. Is the recording going? When you're on your own doing all that kind of stuff. And I must admit, there were occasions where I did get distracted and I had my questions I was going through. And I was interviewing one guy, and it was about a big change, and they were relocating a lot of jobs to a different country. And the questions that we'd agreed up front were, okay, and so, why have you decided to outsource this particular thing? And then the second thing was, and why have you chosen Poland? They were going to Poland as the country. And we'd rehearsed it a little bit and so forth. When the guy came to actually answer the question, he said, well, these are the things we wanted to look for and improve. And that was one of the reasons that Poland was so important. And that's why, blah, 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 we chose it. And I'm nodding, yeah, right. And I wasn't listening. Yes. So my next question was, so why did you choose to go to Poland? And he said, I just answered that. And it's just, okay, big learning lesson there.
A very good point, because if I go back to my days in education, I remember when I first got into that, and I would be in, or I would be being educated. So you'd have a trainer who really knew their subject, but would just talk at you.
Yeah.
And just talk at you. And you're sat there, and I'm sure probably people who are listening to this will have been on a course like that. The one mistake they made was taking someone who knows the subject and thinking you'll be a good trainer. Yeah. Absolutely not. And I decided from that point that I would learn to be a trainer. And there's a lot of work in that. And what that is, that listening you were talking about, and questioning. Yeah, because by questioning, you're gaining knowledge of their understanding of it, and by questioning, you're getting into that conversation as well. And a bad interviewer doesn't listen because you talk about good tape, and that keeping your ear open and saying, "Oh wow, yeah, yes, great," and then going off on a tangent around that. And if you're not listening or you're not empathizing, it's not going to work.
Absolutely not. Yeah. So thinking about what you do with the videos and also the podcast, the audio podcast, and what is it that you think are the qualities of those forms of communication that they deliver that other forms of communication wouldn't deliver? Like you said about PowerPoint and other things. So what is it that is the special, if you like, in your videos and your podcasts?
It's the human aspect. A PowerPoint and someone delivering a PowerPoint, you don't get the human aspect of it. And we like to see that. And I take an interest in neuroscience and the way the brain works and the way that we, digest and what type, whether it's the occipital lobe or whether it's the parietal lobe or whatever, what part of it that does stuff. This is what makes us human. And you don't get that from a Word document. You don't get that from a PowerPoint presentation. Or someone delivering a PowerPoint presentation as an automaton, as a robot. You just don't get it. And for me, that's what fascinates. It's that human aspect. And again, you don't get that when people are nervous or too nervous. You need that relaxation. So it's the human side of it. And the way people, digest stuff will be around audio and visual, combination of both. It's really how we as people digest that information, or humans digest information.
It'd be interesting to look at an MRI scan of
wouldn't it?
A podcast listener.
I'm sure that's happened.
Probably.
I'm sure that's happened. They will have done that, and we're all different. So again, that conversation earlier about delivering something purely as a podcast, you're missing out on a whole audience on that, because not everyone likes to watch podcasts. Not everyone finds that the best way for them to do stuff. They also maybe want to sit down during their lunchtime and watch someone talking, because that's the way they relate. So you need that. What we called it in education was a blended approach.
Yeah, blended learning, absolutely. Yeah. How much promotion do you do then of the communications within Qlik in advance of them coming out or when they've come out?
Well, there's several ways we do it. We have an internal website called Qlik Central, where we will put a banner on there. I've got 2 sites on Confluence. I've got they're actually blogs that I use on Confluence. So I'll create a blog. I've got a blog site, and then I've got a Spotlight site where they can go to. Also, I do a thing every week, which has proven to be extremely popular. And this is a video internal update on what's gone on within Qlik. So I live in Southsea, down on the south coast of England, and I'll go out with my camera and my tripod, and I'll do a little 5-minute thing on what's gone on at Qlik.
Right.
And at the end of that, I'll say, and we've done spotlights on this person, on that person. Go and have a watch. Go and have a listen.
Right.
We'll do emails out to everyone, because it is very much everyone. I don't see it for the exec team, for middle management, for R&D. It's for everyone.
Yep.
And we'll do emails as well to get those out. That's primarily how we do it.
You mentioned Confluence. What's that?
Confluence is an internal website.
So basically, like an intranet thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So it's just a way of building an internal website, and it's purely internal. So everything goes on there. Some of the stuff that goes through legal, I have a YouTube page as well, Qlik Spotlight YouTube channel, and the podcast channel on Podbean as well. So
now that's an interesting thing, because most of the stuff that you do is available to the public. It's in the public domain, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you've only seen.
I've seen a lot. Then I've seen a lot.
There's a lot of it out there, but it has For example, we do stuff where if we're talking about financials or roadmap or anything, product that's going to come out in the future, then none of that can go out. The only stuff that can go out onto the YouTube and the podcast channel is stuff that has gone through legal, that isn't forward-looking, that is available for everyone. Like I don't only interview people in Qlik, I interview customers, I interview partners, technical partners as well. And a lot of that time, I'll go through a process where I'll say, look, here's the interview. Have a look at it. Are you happy with that? If you're happy with that, I'll put it through legal. If legal are happy, then we'll put it out onto the podcast channel and YouTube as well.
So was that a deliberate decision then to say, we want to do this? Or did it just happen that was the most convenient way of doing it?
Well, the podcast side was a bit of a, they call it serendipity, a bit of a happy accident, because the provider charged a lot for integrating it with Active Directory. And at that time, that wasn't within the budget to do that. So it had to go out and be publicly available. In hindsight, I think that was a good thing, because I think in the industry, in the IT industry, in the industry used to be in pharmaceuticals, we're very insular. We're very much saying, oh no, hide this stuff. We can't let anyone see it. But I think as long as it's not going to get you any legal trouble, put it out there. Let other people listen to it.
I couldn't agree more.
And their downloads go anything from 50 to 500 downloads on stuff which is pretty Qlik focused. So I'm quite pleased with that.
So how long have you been doing this? How long is it Qlik?
I'd say about 2 years now. Since I at the time when I got the idea, I was working in product marketing, and there wasn't really a place there for this project. So I got speaking to Lisa Caraway, who's my boss in internal communications, and she said, yes, I think this is a good idea. And that's 2017, so nearly 3 years now it's started. And it's my full-time role.
And what kind of feedback do you get from listeners and from management?
It's my one problem, I think. My one issue is feedback. I struggle to get that. Most of the time, the feedback I get, for example, when I go to Sales Kickoff at the end of January, I will get so much feedback from people coming up to me saying, wow, these are brilliant. Oh, thank you so much. Don't stop. This is fantastic. I learned how to about the company through what you do, and keep it going. But actual feedback on the people writing something down, I do get emails. I do get emails from saying, thanks, John. I got someone from a new joiner, and she said, you helped me get to know the people that I'm going to be worked with, because she could download and listen to the interview. So I do get it, but they're gems. I would love to get more. And if anyone's listening to this podcast and give me an idea that isn't just sending out a questionnaire, that would be brilliant.
So you don't get suggestions of topics that you could cover?
I do get emails every now and again on people that they would like to see interviewed. So
that's good.
They'll say, well, my boss, or I work with these people, and so I do get that. A lot of the time, the people that I interview comes from what's going to be happening in the future, what's happening with the product, what's happening with customers, all that kind of stuff. And I'm actually going, because it was purely internal, but now I'm trying to get more into speaking to customers and speaking to external people as well. And that's happening more and more now, which is brilliant, because it makes it more rounded.
And what about management? Any feedback from leaders?
I mean, the CEO of Qlik is always coming up to me and saying, this is brilliant. I love what you're doing, and he's always up for being interviewed. Most of the team, not all, will come along and say to me, "Yes, John, they're happy," because once they've got used to my style, they then say, "Okay, that's fine. I'm happy to do this now, because I know I'm going to be able to sit down and it'll be fine." So
Well, we touched a little bit there on measurement in terms of feedback. What other measurement do you do to make sure that you're doing what you hope to do?
I do. Well, there's two kinds of measurement. I mean, our company is all about data and stats. So I use their company's tool called Qlik Sense, and I download the podcast data from my podcast channel, and I can look at how often, because it comes with it's Podbean that we use. It comes with some stats, but not a lot, and I can get times of downloads, what country, and so on. So I can do more there. We also have an application that sits across the Confluence data, so I can go in every week and find out how often a particular item's been downloaded, who downloaded it, what geography they're in, what role they're doing, and that allows me, and I can do year-on-year comparison and say, okay, October this year, how was that against October last year? How was it across the year? Because there are definite dips and highs in there, and you can watch that. So I get stats And I get the stats from YouTube, obviously. I can get stats on viewership on there as well. Not down to a personal level because they can't do that.
No.
But I'll do that every week. So I'll even collate some stats and send them to my boss and let her know, how we're trending on podcasts. What was what country downloaded the most? And that kind of stuff. So just feed that back.
And do you ever use any of that data then to make changes about when you actually put things out, or topics you cover?
Well,
or whatever?
Again, I'm governed by the actual material that I get as to what I put out. But I definitely use that data to stagger the release of stuff that I put out there. I use that data, like that internal comms update that I do every week, because it has huge viewership. So that tells me, wow, and they're interested because I'm not stood in front of a door doing it. I'm going out and about and I'm making it interesting. I talk about the history of the area, and people love that.
Yep.
And they're more able to then do that. So I'll look at that and say that's gone down really well. We really need to keep this going. That happens every single week. We do that. I've got other people around the world doing it for me as well. So that's going out. So I will adjust. Like the YouTube channel, we had a partner that we worked on YouTube, did a YouTube interview in New York. It's a company called Rox AI. They partner with our software. And he's a very lively man who does that and very up for this kind of thing. And I said, right, I'll do this interview. If you can get the views over 1,000, we'll put a prize in for whoever does that. And in conjunction with our social media side and their social media push, we managed to get it well over the target. And learning from that now, and I even provoke a little bit of competition between partners because there was another partner there, and I said, your viewership is like this and like that. Let's see who's going to, So we get that. They're very competitive. And that helps as well and make it a bit of a game.
Thinking again about listening numbers, what percentage of your internal audience do actually download and watch or listen?
Well, there's two stats I go on. One is distinct views. Distinct views meaning what percentage of our company has at some point listened or viewed one of their either the spotlights or the internal comms update on that, and we're up to over 93% of the 2,400 people that work at Qlik have watched at some point one of the episodes or one of the things that has gone out, which I'm quite proud of that actually. I would say for each of the episodes, on average, we're probably talking about 5% on average of the internal stuff that we put out there. So 5%. So and the conversation we had, I think it was last week, when I thought 5% wasn't any good, but you subsequently said, actually, that's not so bad. So I feel okay on that.
Talking to other people, actually, no, that isn't bad. This is an interesting phenomenon particularly with podcasting, which is the one that I focus on. In that, no, you don't seem to get massive uptake. What you do seem to get, and this is just listening to people anecdotally, is those who do listen become very loyal.
Yeah.
I mean, do you ask people
all the time.
Why they listen, or when they listen, or why they don't listen?
When I'm able to speak to people about it, we recently acquired a company, and I was quite I wanted to make sure that they knew about it, and they didn't. They had no idea about the updates or the spotlight interviews or any like that. So that then gave me a mission to make sure that they were aware, and I obviously made them aware at the time, and also that because the communication went across to those people as well as the rest of the company.
But have you ever had any feedback from people who have listened and then and looked at it and rejected it and said, no, I wouldn't? And have they given you their reasons?
No, podcasts, yes. I mean, I had a meeting with a group at Qlik, and he basically turned around and said, no one listens to podcasts. Why would we be doing podcasts? I don't think I had that feedback, which surprised me. Because I didn't think that isn't the case. I think that was just their point of view. People do. I don't very often get someone turn around to me and say, well, I listened to it and it wasn't very good and I'm not listening, and that's a shame. I'd like that, because by getting that feedback, that then allows you to either adjust or to take note of that. People very rarely would turn around and say that.
Certainly I think we need a lot more of that. It's that when people do listen, what are the things that turn them off?
Yeah,
and particularly in terms of content, I'm very interested in that. And then what is the content that is really suited to the medium and therefore draws them in? And for me, it's always going to be about what you were saying, which is the human bit. If you actually feel you're making a connection with the person, then that can be very powerful. And I think, personally, I'm a huge audio fan. I think I don't think there's anything better than to actually get as close as you possibly can to what someone thinks and how they are and their personality.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would be useful if we could get more insights.
It's a constant battle, that side of things.
What proportion of people listen on mobile as opposed to desktop, or watch on desktop and mobile?
I don't have those stats, I'm afraid.
Right.
I think I'm able to get them, but I don't know. Because I think on the device in Podbean I can get that information, but I've not dug down into that.
Because for podcasting, the answer is overwhelmingly mobile.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the sort of regular things like that, the ones the BBC might put out, or any of the NPR ones, or all the other famous, more entertainment style ones. But I'm very interested to know, does that work within industry? How can you shift that? Because I do think that actually, personally, it's a theory I have, the more that business type podcasts can look like This American Life, or In Our Time, or Desert Island Discs, or the Peter Crouch podcast, or anything like that, the greater the chance is that people will think, oh yeah, there's John talking to somebody I'm interested in, next to the football podcast. I'll give them both a listen.
That would be great. I'd like that. I know I can get those, because I know you can look at operating system and you can look at mobile. That's something I'll do. And another thing I'm thinking of doing, and I've kind of got into it a bit, is just doing a bit more comedy. We've got a sales director who runs global sales. He's such a good man, and there is a show called Between Two Ferns. It's an American show. It's very risque, so if you are easily easily upset, then
it's definitely got the little E against
it certainly
content.
Has. But bringing that comedy into it as well, I think, again, humanizes someone.
Yeah.
Because if they can put a bit, I'm not saying make it laugh a minute, download it. It's not going to be James Corden. But if you can put a bit of comedy in there as well, that humanizes the person. And I'm starting to look into how I can. Not everyone will be up for it. Not everyone will be comfortable to do that. But because what I used to do at the end of my interviews was give a fun fact about stuff, and that is, 99% or 99% of Arctic ice is made out of penguin wee. So that kind of stuff, and it makes that bit. And some people would say that actually they listen right through and then wait for the joke at the end.
Right,
it's like Christmas cracker,
a bit like they used to do in this country at was it News at 10? They used to say, and finally.
Yes.
It's very UK centric reference there, but it would be that kind of fun fact. Okay, best episode you've ever done.
It's going back to that mid-air. I struggle to do this because I do love, and it sounds like I can't bring out one of my children. They're all beautiful. They're all brilliant. But mid-air for me, and the reason why was they are a company that we have a corporate responsibility program where we will give our software free of charge to charities and so on. And mid-air do relief for people like in Syria, refugees. And they were using it in our software in conjunction with satellite information, GIS, global information,
right?
Because the refugee camps were moving around all the time, and they needed to make sure where they were, what part of the world they were in, and follow them, and then supply them with the help they needed, water, medical relief, that kind of stuff. And this was Medair were giving this, and the conversation with this person made me think, wow, because I'm in software. I work in a software company, and we sell software, and we hopefully, makes people sell more or do more. But that was a moment when actually that was saving lives. That software was saving lives, and the way they were doing that and saying, we use your software, we can see where they are, we can see what relief we've given them, we can see what relief we need to give them, and we can deliver it at the right time in the right place, and it saves lives. And it sounds very worthy. I'm not trying to be worthy, because there's some very funny stuff as well in there. But the mid-air one definitely gave me that good feeling.
I mean, as I say, I listened and watched, and ended up watching both. It doesn't come across as worthy at all. No, it really does come across as quite humbling, and I get that. It reminded me of an episode I did a long time ago where I interviewed somebody who was making a big difference in community medicine in South Washington, D.C., which is quite a deprived area. And I thought that was a great one. Yeah. Okay, other end of the spectrum then. Worst one, and what did you learn from it?
The worst one. Well, we go back to a subject we've already talked about, and that was no names, no pack drill. But that was someone who just would not get out from behind that shield.
Yeah.
Would not talk to me. Would talk at me.
Yeah.
And would answer the question as if I was, I don't know, just a microphone.
Yeah.
And that was very difficult.
Yeah.
I came out of there very frustrated.
Was that a senior person then, or just somebody?
Mid side of things. So mid-management, not senior. So you
yeah.
actually find sometimes the senior people have learned that humanization and they're able to do it, but the people on that journey haven't quite got there yet. And that I just walked out thinking I've been spoken to.
You've been addressed.
I have been addressed, and I've been told everything that is right because they feel they can't do it wrong. And thank you very much. Yeah, but that would be the worst one, and that will happen again.
Right.
There is no way that you can stop that from happening, because if people have got an agenda, if people are going to come on with that attitude, no matter how much you try and talk them round, sometimes it can't work. So you just have to choose your battles.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably true. It doesn't matter how great someone is in an interview, they are going to come up against their bête noire one time or another, and
who
there's
was
no way past it.
There might have been Melvin Bragg and Rod Hull-Emu, or was that
Michael
Parkinson?
Parkinson.
Yeah, and the other one was the singer.
Russell Harty and
yes.
and Grace Jones.
Yeah. You're always going to get your nemesis, as you say. That's always going to happen.
Yeah, and both of those interviews, again, very UK centric, and probably what people who hadn't seen it wouldn't realise is that the interviewee ended up hitting the interviewer. So I have to say, fortunately, that's never happened to me. But
no, I've not had that either.
Hope it never does.
That's good.
Okay. How would you like to develop what you've done so far? Then you talked about the comedy bit, which sounds very interesting. I shall listen out for that one. Any other things that you would like to do?
I'm actually doing it already, some of this. So I started to do something within my community. I live in Southsea in Hampshire. And in my own time and with my own equipment, I've gone in and started doing an update for Southsea. What's going on, where to go and eat.
Nothing to do with Qlik. This is all personal.
No. This is all personal. And also interviewing people in my local community, and such fascinating subjects of it. There's a deli nearby where the chap who runs it used to be Jamie Oliver's right-hand man.
Yeah.
There's someone who makes shoes for Stella McCartney. And it's fascinating because these are local business. So you go away from that corporate side of things.
Yeah.
And you're actually going onto ground that is quite new and unbroken for me, because I'm speaking to people about a subject maybe I'm not okay about. I know my industry, I know my company, but I don't know any of this. But it still works, and I learned so much. And it's almost like me giving back to Southsea.
Yeah.
So that kind of thing I love doing, and I would like to do it. So developing within Qlik would be going out to partners, to customers, to people who use the software. And developing even more that human side of things.
Right.
That's what I want to do, and I'd love for my podcast to be thousands and thousands of viewers. I've only got 2,400 people internally I can go to, so I'd like to increase that, but that may not be the case. So I fight the battles. So I can.
The community stuff that you do then, where does that get aired? Where can people find it?
I work in conjunction with a person who runs a magazine called Southsea Folk, and they've got a Podbean site, and they put the podcast out on that. The ones that I do, the updates on what's going on in Southsea goes out onto YouTube. So they're my two, and it's very, very, very. I've only just been doing it, so it's only just starting off. But again, I enjoy doing it. So as long as some people watch it, I'll carry on doing it.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about the purpose and how effective it is. I mean, what do you think the future is for in particular podcasting for internal comms?
I think if you're in internal comms, you have to look at all avenues and all ways of disseminating. Don't get downhearted if you find that actually not everyone is listening to it. Also, don't go out and buy a studio and kit it out with all the latest kit and do that huge investment. You can do this kind of thing very simply. All I have is a couple of microphones a camera, a digital SLR, or if it's just podcasts, then just a couple of microphones. Or I'll speak to people over Windows 10, voice recorder. And there are a few things you need to do. Make sure that audio is good. Don't spend thousands of pounds on it. You don't need to. Just get the content out there.
Yeah.
Make sure it keeps going. Find all avenues of getting that out there, whatever format works. And you will find you'll get something back. I've been doing it for 2 years now, and there is feedback, and I'm no way I'm giving it up. But what I will say is, and I said it once already, you don't need to buy the world. It may be very tempting to go out and get yourself kitted out in a studio and get stuff, do it that way. You can do it very simply and just get it out there. Get the content out there. Relax your thinking about it. Don't think it has to be 100% perfect.
No.
As long as it's listenable. A caveat on that: it needs to. I would say the audio is very, very important. If the audio isn't listenable, obviously people won't listen to it. To get some good audio, set yourself up and do it, and people will download it and will view it.
Okay, I like what you said there. I think you're absolutely right. You do not have to match the BBC or NPR or any of these people.
No.
But certainly for me, there's a threshold in terms of quality. The great thing is that you can get above that threshold relatively cheaply these days. The kit that we're using today is in the hundreds, not the thousands. And it's absolutely brilliant. So
no, it's very easy to get that stuff out there. But just relax yourself. Just listen to feedback if you get it, and just relax what you're doing, and it will work, hopefully.
Okay. If people wanted to sample some of this stuff themselves, where can they find you?
Right. Well, they can go to qlik.podbean.com. It's also available on Apple as well, so you can download it through the Apple site if you want to listen to the podcast.
Yep.
If you want to watch any of the interviews, just search for Qlik, and it's Qlik, Qlik. Yeah. I've got a playlist on the Qlik main YouTube channel called Qlik Spotlight, and there's also Qlik Up Close, which is a partner one as well. Go and have a listen to that. And if they want to get in touch with me, just get in touch with me. I get either use my Hotmail, which is johnsands999@hotmail.com, or my business email, which is john.sands@qlik.com.
Brilliant.
And I'm happy to communicate with people. I truly am. It will be great. And that's one thing that I want to do now, and which I'm working with you, Paul, is really helping, is to get out to the wider community, see what other people are doing, see what else is going on, and you can always learn.
Yeah, brilliant. And I'll put all those links in the show notes as well, so people can connect them. Well, it's a classic thing. You get two podcasters together, and I said before, they could talk the XLR connection out of a microphone. But we are going to have to come to a close here. So I just want to say a big thank you, John, for coming along and talking on Talking Leaders.
Thank you.
Thanks again to John. I hope you enjoyed listening to our conversation. If you have any feedback on this episode or any aspect of the show, we'd love to hear it. Seriously, we really would. Because if we know what you like and what you don't like, then we can improve. The Talking Leaders podcast is a Talking Leaders production. We work with leaders who want to get heard, be understood, and build trust. For more, visit our website at www.talkingleaders.com.